Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I would like to take a moment for a sort of sorry, not sorry to my regular viewers. I know some of you are probably tired of seeing the same footage of Battlefront 2 EA, but this was from the first 2 hours that I had recorded during the Origin Early Access, and I refused to purchase the game for very understandable reasons. So you have been seeing duplicate footage, but to record new footage would require me to violate my ethical standards, so sorry, not sorry. That said, it would seem that we all may have been given some misleading information as a result of Google Translate. I have been getting flooded with emails and private messages that I woke up to this morning pointing me to multiple different sites all discussing the misleading translation, which oddly enough I have to rely on Google Translate for those sites as well. And while I am a fan of irony as a general rule, sometimes it can be a bit frustrating. Now what had happened was myself and basically every other US-based site on the planet has bought into the narrative that Belgium did in fact classify the loot box system within Star Wars Battlefront 2 EA as gambling, when this was actually not the case. Adeline Louvigny of the French site RTBF points out that what was released was an informational brief on the loot box systems employed in both Overwatch and Star Wars Battlefront 2 EA. And the original article cited by us US-based platforms was due to a mistranslation by Google Translate of the source site of the article, VTM News. Now, in that article, as it turns out, VTM News was reporting a statement made by the Minister of Justice, Koen Geens, who would like to see these loot box microtransactions banned in video games and would like to ban these microtransactions at the European level, in effect banning them from the whole EU. However, it does appear that this was nothing more than the stated opinion of Mr. Geens and not the official findings of the Belgian investigation, which is still currently underway. And while this will somewhat temper the excitement that I know a lot of people were feeling about the AAA companies taking one on the chin and being forced to fall under similar or the same regulations as other gambling systems, but the investigation is underway, and Minister Geens is most definitely not an ally of the AAA companies in this matter. So while the decision has not been made, there is still a very real chance that it can go through. And also, thankfully, there was no mistranslation as to what the state of Hawaii is doing in regards to these loot box gambling mechanics, and so we do have that to look forward to. In addition, I've been receiving some more fairly conflicting reports in regards to loot box gambling, this time from Australia. One of my regular viewers, Director Harui, my apologies if I said that wrong, reached out to Rob Grimmond, Manager of Compliance and Investigations for the Office of Liquor and Gaming Regulation in Australia, in order to inquire on this issue. Rob Grimmond returned the following response. I note your advice that such features are deemed to be gambling in Belgium. I also note your concerns that these features have the potential to normalize gambling for young people who play online video games. For your information, the Office of Liquor and Gaming Regulation is responsible for the administration and enforcement of various gambling acts, including the Gaming Machine Act of 1991, Casino Control Act of 1984, the Lotteries Act of 1999, and Wagering Act, which regulate the various forms of legalized gambling in Queensland. Regrettably, as a regulator of legalized gambling in Queensland, I am not in a position to definitively advise whether loot boxes or similar video gaming features would constitute gambling. However, I can confirm that video gaming, which provides for loot boxes, would not fall within the meaning of a gaming machine as defined under the Gaming Machining Act. However, not all hope is lost in regards to the Australian government. Gamers have found themselves an ally in the Victorian Commission for Gambling and Liquor Regulation, which is the gambling and liquor regulatory body for the state of Victoria in Australia. Jared Wolf, a strategic analyst for the Victorian Regulators Compliance Division, had the following to say. My name is Jared Wolf, and I am the Strategic Analyst for the Compliance Division at VCGLR. I have received your correspondence in regards to gambling functionality, loot boxes being incorporated into games. Your research and suppositions on the matter are correct. What occurs with loot boxes does constitute gambling by the definition of the Victorian legislation. Unfortunately, where the complexity arises is in jurisdiction and our powers to investigate. Legislation has not moved as quickly as the technology at both state and federal level, and we are not necessarily equipped to determine the legality of these practices in lieu of the fact the entities responsible are overseas. He continued in a second email, "Gambling isn't necessarily unauthorized gambling, so there are a lot of variables at play. For perhaps a real-world example, think of overseas betting agencies such as Bet365. Australians can and do use this service, yet it is clearly administered and run from the UK. This isn't illegal. However, that company set up shop in Victoria or started specifically advertising and offering gambling products to Victorians. Then we could investigate, and it could be considered a breach of legislation, and we would pursue, overseas or not. One of the downfalls is that using overseas-based products, Victorian residents do not have us to investigate any complaints or issues they have. So while we don't have reason yet to call a ticker tape parade down Wall Street, thumbing our noses at the likes of EA and CNBC, yeah, don't think I haven't noticed how closely your analyst Evan Wingren works with EA, even to the point of taking part in their quarterly conference calls, you disingenuous bastards, but we are getting closer to the potential of some real regulatory legislation on just how far these companies can go with their predatory business models. But as always, please do let me know what you think down in the comments below. And as YouTube is still insisting on demonetizing quite literally every video I put out, only to later confirm it a false flag, I would ask that, if you are so inclined, give my Patreon a quick gander. Even $1 can go a long way and will grant you access to the Patreon-only areas of my Discord, access to the monthly Patreon AMA livestream, and access to any non-news related content one day early. Special thanks to our 20 and Up Club and our $100 elites. Their names are in the description below. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.